think I was at $30,000 a month the last time that we talked in gross revenue on a monthly basis, and we're bouncing between $40,000 and $60,000 a month right now.
I give a lot of credit to the community. What's super interesting about the world that we're operating in is we have a bunch of independent business owners scattered across the United States and Canada in different metro areas that are sharing secrets.
This next evolution of couch flippers looks like past all of these new challenges that everyone's facing right now. Because there's some guys who I've seen do great that I personally look up to, that this whole marketplace thing is like a wall to them, and they just do not know what to do. And I'm like, man, dude, you're into the high end stuff.
If you're on Facebook Marketplace and you're scrolling and you're on there to, be entertained, look at pictures of dogs, and of course, that kind of lead is going to be much, much less qualified compared to one that we might get from Google.
Not everybody is necessarily set up.
Yeah, so how are things going with Dylan Pabia and the couch flipping business nowadays?
It's going good, man. I don't remember the last time we did a podcast. Was it before December of last year?
It's got to have been almost a year. I think you were like the third podcast we ever did, or second podcast we ever did. I know the first one was Nick from The Good Couch, and then you were probably number 2, and then I think Roman was number 3, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, man. So I've grown a lot from there. Yeah, I think I was at $30,000 a month the last time that we talked in gross revenue on a monthly basis. We hit 86,000 in gross revenue in February, but dude, it was just so unrealistic. So I dialed it back some, and we're bouncing between $40,000 and $60,000 a month right now. Summertime was definitely slower. I think a lot of people saw that, but with everything going on in the couch flipping space, I think that's why this call is important, man. I think we just need to get on and talk about what the problem is and where we need to be looking to, because the people who are ahead are going to be the ones that end up surviving it. I saw a lot of marketers crash out after there was some big changes made in the advertising space back in 2018. There was the whole third-party data, Cambridge Analytica data leak, all that. So there were some major changes that happened in Facebook marketing after that, and Facebook just started banning everybody's ad accounts with no exact rhyme or reason, and we're seeing the same thing inside of Marketplace. I have a couple of students who have already had their Marketplace banned. I have a friend down in South Florida who had his account banned. Facebook restored it and said, oh, there was no reason for the ban. It took them weeks to get back. And then right after that, they rebanned him. So it's like, what do you do in that place? And so I think that you need to be thinking quickly about what the plan is, or just aggregate or diversifying your audience or your sources in which you are able to sell.
Absolutely. So the business in February up to 86, but probably pretty crazy, a lot of different moving parts, and you're just sure, almost like sheer willpower, right? Getting through those days. Now at 40, 60, it's a little bit more manageable. Things have fallen into a process. It sounds like you've hired some help, and that's also opened up some bandwidth for you to take on consulting clients and coaching clients. And how's your time being split between those two things right now?
It's funny because in the beginning I was like, I don't want it to affect my couch flipping business. I'm only going to do it on Saturdays. I should have known myself going into it. I started bringing these guys on, and then I just obsess over getting them results. And so it's been spilling over into other days, which is totally fine. I know what my commitments are, and so I know where I can be flexible and shift things in the couch flipping business so that I can spend time over here and vice versa. So I just went on a tear last week and picked up a ton of couches between Thursday and Saturday, and so they've got 15 to 20 couches sitting in the warehouse right now that are just waiting to be cleaned for them to go in there and clean and stuff, and just kind of preparing. And I'm also just playing with the strategy overall here. I think the last time we spoke, I was still a solo guy. So we were pushing about 30 grand a month, and I was solo, and I was running in 3-day intervals. So I was going to pick up, then the next day I was cleaning, staging, dropping, and then the next day I was delivering everything. And we were just out of a little 1,000 square foot warehouse. And so funny enough, I did that for a long time, and I was working fine. I was working a whole lot. I went to that couch flipping conference, bro. You went to the couch flipping conference as well. And there was just Michael Griffin was on stage, and I knew my number one issue was I just know that if I could get more couches, I could sell more couches. But I was one guy, and so I knew I needed to hire a driver. I remember looking Michael Griffin in the face and being like, dude, I'm scared that they're going to wreck my trailer. And he's like, dude, I'd be scared that I wouldn't make $50,000 next month. And that line just changed everything. So I went back home. hired a driver, and it became immediately apparent after 2.5 days that we had maxed out that little 1,000 square foot warehouse. So the same time I hired my driver, I had to move into a bigger warehouse, like within that week. And so we moved everything over into the new warehouse, and then it was 1,350 square foot warehouse, which was just a very little bit bigger. But then we went to 2 warehouses and then 3 warehouses that were 1,350 square feet. And then we moved into an almost 4,000 square foot warehouse. So that's what we're operating out of now. I have a driver, I have a cleaner, I have a social media girl who runs the drops and makes the sales for us. So yeah, man, things are a lot different than they were when I was last on the pod.
Everybody knows Ivy Flip's app is the best way to source couches on Facebook, Craigslist, and OfferUp. But did you know Ivy Flip is also the best way to post couches too? Imagine a world where you list your couch once, and it magically appears across all major marketplaces. That's not a dream, it's your new reality with Ivy Flip. Ivy Flip isn't just a tool, it's your strategic partner in turning your flipping hustle into a thriving, efficient empire. Elevate your couch flipping business today. Discover the power of cross-listing with Ivy Flip. Try the Ivy Flip app today for free. Search Ivy Flip in the Google Play Store or Apple iOS Store now, or click the link in bio.
It's remarkable how this industry is changing. We've been in couch flipping as a tech provider for about 2 years now. And just seeing the growth of the people that I've met 2 years ago and how far their business has come along from literally a storage unit and a trailer to 4,000, 8,000, 12,000 square foot warehouses, revenues going up from 30 to 50, 70, even 100K in some cases. It's really incredible. And I give a lot of credit to the community. What's super interesting about the world that we're operating in is we have a bunch of independent business owners scattered across the United States and Canada in different metro areas that are sharing secrets, that are giving each other information and best practices about how to grow new kind of business called couch flipping. And so they're independent, but they're growing in parallel. And a really good example of this is the pod that we did on the couch drop. Definitely the most viewed podcast episode that we've done, and probably the most influential podcast episode that we've done in helping people understand that there are marketing channels outside of Facebook Marketplace. Like, you don't have to be so beholden to buying all of your inventory on Facebook Marketplace and then selling all of your inventory on Facebook Marketplace. And so I think that was the first peak for a lot of people in understanding that there are other marketing channels out there. And so I think fast forward a year today, it's a really good time to take another look at this conversation. How do you build a successful couch flipping business off of Facebook Marketplace? What are the other channels that you can rely on?
Man, it's not even about other channels. It's just diversifying where you have the audience. It could be through text, through email, through a Facebook group. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues you've got. So really the power is in the list more than anything, because I know the same exact strategy that I'm using inside of a Facebook group would work inside of a custom app or email that would get sent out, or it would work on a website. I have some really cool things that we'll be working on over the next year. Once you understand the core strategy of it, from there you could take it to any platform.
How do you build an audience? How do you engage with that audience? How do you create urgency to buy? It doesn't have to be in a Facebook group, could be through a variety of channels. The thing that's been really interesting to see, once again, the growth of the industry, like how businesses have been developed, is that I think people have always known that they shouldn't be so reliant just on posting things on Facebook Marketplace. Everyone has known this. It's not new news. And I remember even like at the beginning of the year, everyone in like the no nonsense group and the community at large, they were talking a lot about like the entrance of competitors and how that was going to crush couch flipping forever. And you notice like nowadays, no one talks about that at all. No one's complaining about competitors, right? No one's like, oh, I can't get deals on Facebook Marketplace. That conversation is just done. And that's because the real problem came about, which is there was an algorithmic change or some systematic change in how Facebook is evaluating these couch listing posts. And you simply just can't get the visibility that you used to be able to at scale for couch flipping. Now you kind of have to look at it in steps, which is if you're a solo operation in a storage unit in a garage with a trailer, market yourself, buy and sell on Facebook Marketplace, there's no problem with that. But if you expect to consistently be able to bring in $25,000 a month in revenue just on the basis of Facebook Marketplace listings, you probably have another thing coming. And so use Facebook Marketplace as a wedge to get into the market and kickstart your business without having to put up a bunch of capital. And you can bootstrap literally one couch at a time, but don't be so reliant on Facebook Marketplace as a long-term strategy. And so now that's coming to bear. Everyone's known that they shouldn't be so reliant on Facebook Marketplace, but they just didn't have to confront that reality. And so now that their back's against the wall, how do I sell my couches e-commerce? How do I get people to walk into my brick and mortar? How do I reach a broader audience? All of these questions are starting to get asked.
Absolutely. Like you said, we all kind of saw it on the horizon. Now it's here. You've got people who just like Facebook absolutely nerfing people and Facebook straight up shutting people's marketplaces down without any specific rhyme or reason. And how do we solve something if we can't pinpoint an exact reason why the shutdowns are happening? Like I said, this is something that we saw very familiar in the ad space. Like we could always get the ad accounts back, but the fact that they could just shut us down anytime was just a huge bottleneck in our business. So what do we do during those times? And so, as you know, I've brought on some clients. We've been running Facebook ads for acquisition. That's actually been going really well over the last week. We've picked up a good bit. I think a lot of this stuff in any marketing campaign that you launch, there's going to be a learning phase. And then I like to keep everything broad. And then after time passes, you collect this valuable data about our audience who is responding. And then we can dial that in further. The trick that I am running into right now. So right now I have 16 or 17 coaching students. I have 6 monthly clients that we're managing ads for. And what I'm finding is, I'm teaching this strategy. I'm implementing this strategy for people. Not everybody is necessarily set up to handle that mass amount of leads. So it is a different structure than you would see in Marketplace. Marketplace, they're going in, they're typing in a specific product, they're browsing around, they click on your Marketplace, hey, is this available? That's a lot more intentional of a lead. When you are popping up on somebody's Facebook, there's a hook involved, there's urgency, there's scarcity. They don't necessarily know anything about you. There's not necessarily commerce reviews sitting up for them to see. Then the strategy is, okay, how do we acquire this lead? How do we get them to show interest? How do we get them to take a step forward, raise a hand and say, hey, I'm interested in your item? We have that part figured out. Now we're getting a lot of people, and it's training my guys on how to handle these leads. In the marketing industry, with all my previous clients, I would always tell them, hey, listen, about 70% of the leads, treat every single lead like they are going to buy. So follow up with the same tenacity and intensity, but 70% of them, throw them out the door. Like, it's just a part of it. It's a numbers game. We have to get that out of the way. You're going to have 20% of people who are willing to buy from you, just not ready yet. And then you'll have another 10% who are ready to go now. So you have to dig through all of that to get to that 10%. And then you have this 20% that's constantly building on a daily basis. So that's kind of what I'm teaching my guys. I'm seeing a lot of guys who are developing these skill sets and are getting better at closing, which is great. And then I'm also developing other strategies for the guys who aren't necessarily ready for that mass amount of leads. I mean, I checked on a guy the other day. He has 230 something leads that we've generated over the past week and some change, a handful of buyers out of those. But I mean, it's only, $3 and something dollars, $3 and some change per lead. But really, it's just nailing down. All of this is like developing a strategy where we know every time we spend $1, we're pulling $5 back, or we're pulling $8 back. And then it just becomes, how many times can we spend $1? And so I think people should be thinking about that pretty heavily right now, as well as diversifying your audience into Facebook groups, in text lists, and email lists. Anything that you can do to aggregate in those 3 places, I think is going to be important right now, because when you own the traffic, there's nobody who can shut you down.
Absolutely. And really, this is a conversation about marketing fundamentals, right? That some flippers may not have had exposure to because they just, frankly, they didn't need to, right? Like they were like given a business model, which is like you buy this couch at this price and you sell it for $600, $700, big gray sectional, and you just, post it on Facebook Marketplace and you wait. That was a business model for a very long time. And, if that's not working, now we have to go back to basics and really figure out, how do we build this business from scratch? And, the point that you made about the difference in lead quality, I mean, this is, once again, part of marketing fundamentals. There's a reason why broadcast advertising fell off a cliff and Google reigns supreme in the digital advertising world. Like when consumers go to Google and they search for something, that displays intent. And it cues you in to what they're thinking and what they might need, and allows you to serve them with an advertisement for a product or service that's cued into that intention. And it turns out this understanding of what the consumer wants is much more powerful than any demographic features about the consumer, right? So the fact that you are old and British, I mean, that's Ozzy Osbourne and the Queen of England, right? So the demographics don't help us as much as these cues that tell us about what that person wants. And if we're going to do sort of direct response type campaigns, right, where we put an ad in front of someone and try to get them to engage through having like a good hook, compelling copy, and getting them to respond in that moment, yeah, of course, like if you're on Facebook Marketplace and you're scrolling and you're on there to, be entertained, look at pictures of dogs, and talk to your cousin. I don't know what people do on Facebook, but we're taking time out of their day. We're taking attention and we're trying to divert it into something that's productive for our business. And of course, that kind of lead is going to be much, much less qualified compared to one that we might get from Google, searching for used furniture, or one that we get from Facebook Marketplace. Hey, I'm looking for a sofa. It doesn't mean that it's not valuable. So in this instance, we have maybe 5% of people who are ready to buy now. Great. Go find that 5% of people. That's how you're going to fund your campaign. But then you have the 95% of people that you have engaged with, and you paid for that engagement. You're paying per impression, you're paying per click. Do something with that, right? Have a strategy for following up with that audience, building your brand, getting recognition. And just because they're not ready to buy today doesn't mean that they won't buy from you 2 months from now. And in fact, this is the entire premise of Ivy doing a podcast and putting out content every day. Very rarely do we actually promote what we do. Like maybe 5% of the content that we put out like actually talks about like the Ivy sourcing tool, the Ivy cross-listing tool. A lot of our marketing is just premised on staying in front of you, right? Like we want to give you good information. We want to teach you how to like build your couch flipping business. We want to describe, if you're starting at A, how do you get to Z? What does Z even look like? What is the end game here? Keep you motivated. And then if you need someone to be your technology partner, or if you need those resources, like, here we are, you can come to us. So this is my 5th company. I ran a marketing agency. We both have marketing backgrounds. So I think it's a little easier for us to step back and see the bigger picture here. But once again, for a lot of couch flippers, they're doing it for the first time. And that's because couch flipping is kind of, Michael Griffin put it really well in both of the pods that I did with him. Flipping couches is like running a lemonade stand. It's not a super complex business. It's available for you to go and make money if you want to work hard. And because it's kind of this training wheels business model, a lot of the people that are getting into it, it's their first entrepreneurial endeavor. And so they haven't learned these lessons the hard way. And I think that's really what's happening in the current environment, and the summer slowdown in sales and stuff like that. But I can understand the challenge that people have been going through.
Man, I think you're spot on right there. When I got into it, it was unbelievable because I was like, there's no way that I'm able to build a business model. It was just so simple. I'm not saying that's a pipe dream or anything like that. Things can still be simple, but you have to have the systems in place. No doubt about it. Yeah, I'm really interested to see, just this what this next evolution of couch flippers looks like past all of these new challenges that everyone's facing right now. Because there's some guys who I've seen do great that I personally look up to, that this whole marketplace thing is like a wall to them, and they just do not know what to do. And I'm like, man, like, dude, you're into the high end stuff. You're like, it's more important now than ever. So I'm interested in seeing how those guys fare too, because I don't think it's going to get any more simpler. I just see it getting more complicated.
Yeah, if I had to describe a future for couch flipping, I think a lot of this ends up in flippers running relatively robust furniture retail businesses. But it's like how you get there is important, because if you look at the current crop of used furniture outlets or even new furniture retail stores that are brick and mortar and have a presence in different areas, like the way they got there is very different, right? Like they probably started brick and mortar and they've been around for 20, 30 years, maybe they're family run, and they've probably been doing business the same way for a very long time. And the way that couch flippers are going to build these businesses, very different. They're tech first, they're marketplace first, digital first in a way. A lot of these guys have built their business like one couch at a time. And I think that makes them more adaptable and responsive to the needs of their market compared to some of these older players. So what'll happen is people who started flipping out of their garage, they're going to have a 10,000 square foot showroom and warehouse, and they're going to be flipping a mix of used and new inventory. and they'll probably diversify out of flipping only couches into, different kinds of furniture as well, because, they can get good deals on that. And I think the problem is, like, the way this community moves, there has to be someone leading the charge. Facebook group is a really good example of this. If you hadn't tried something new and different with the Facebook group and then been willing to share and talk about that strategy, no one else would be doing Facebook dropting. Maybe, right? A couple people, but it would be like such a small fraction of overall couch flippers utilizing that strategy. And so same thing with new furniture, right? There's a model there, and some people are doing well with it, some people are not. And so the people that are doing well with it, if they come on to the pod, or if they, go into these groups, these communities, and they post about it, there's an opportunity for other flippers to learn from that and adopt those practices into their business. I know couch flippers that, they'll walk into someone's house to pick up a sectional. The seller will be like, hey, I have like this $3,000 dining room table. Do you want it? And they'll be like, oh, no, like, I don't know if I can make money on it, because they've never sold a dining room table before. But if they had that experience, or if they knew, like, with a higher degree of confidence, like, hey, I can make $500 on that, I'm already here, it's almost a no-brainer, they would take that every time. So it's this lack of information, it's a lack of knowledge. And really, the way that I've seen this community evolve, there are going to be some people leading the charge, they're going to elucidate the business model, and then it'll slowly spread to the rest of the community. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen on this ads front. Like, learning to market yourself as a business from like a fundamental level is very different than if you are totally reliant on Facebook Marketplace for your distribution. But some people have to lead the charge. They have to figure out the model, and then they have to fill everyone else in.
Yeah, man, I'm hoping to be that guy. I really am. Like, we're digging so hard into data right now and just leaning into it. And I'm spending time away from my business, really trying to crack this thing. I have a couple of suspicions on some things that I think will work really well, but we haven't even gotten the chance to turn that page yet. And so, but I'm hoping this week we can dig into that stuff. But something has to give, no doubt about it. I mean, what are your thoughts on all of the marketplace shutdowns, man? If you were somebody who had just had their marketplace shut down, where do you go from there?
It's hard to answer hypothetically, because it depends on like your cash flow, your liquidity. Like, let's say you're making $10,000 a month gross, and you're taking home maybe 3,000, 4,000 net. You just don't have a stockpile of cash, right? It's hard for you at that moment to then go make the investments that are necessary to take your business to the next level. You're not prepared. You got caught with your pants down. So people in that situation, they're not going to have the time or the resources to make the pivot, and they're going to fall out. I think most people shouldn't be in this situation. But if you are in this kind of case, then, what can you do? Like, you got to wait for Facebook Marketplace start working again, and then take that as a lesson and be ready the next time that your listings get downrated or you get banned. The other thing is, Facebook is not the only marketplace. I did some content about this recently, but some of our best flippers have diversified off of Facebook Marketplace onto selling primarily on OfferUp. I think Griff and I talked about this, that Craigslist used to be the big dog in terms of marketplaces. Now it's presumably Facebook. But why did Craigslist die off? I mean, they didn't adjust the market conditions, and they didn't provide a superior experience to the consumers. However, the demand for buying and selling on local marketplaces didn't go away, it just shifted. And OfferUp has really been stepping up to the plate. Like, they have a great team. The way that they try to control and cater the experience on the platform, you can tell that like someone's like actively thinking about it and like pushing to make it better. And I've seen improvements on their platform experience in just over the past year or two. So even if you haven't had a great experience with OfferUp in the past, maybe now is the time to reevaluate. They've recently launched a program for businesses. Each deal seems to be different. So like you can get a different deal based on like what you negotiate with them. But the idea is like you need to verify that you're a business, you're an LLC, whatever. And then they'll charge you a monthly subscription. And then that gives you access to, let's say, 200 or 300 posts a month. So after your first 15 couches a month, they charge you $1 per post. And then in addition to that, you can promote like up to 75 items at the same time, is what I've heard. And, before, through their like consumer interface, you could promote one item at a time. So being able to promote 75 at a time is a huge increase. The other thing that we've learned about OfferUp is the way that they distribute views is very different from Facebook. So Facebook, when you post something, like you may even see the views on that listing increase over time, depending on some like algorithmic unlock. Whereas on OfferUp, it seems fairly predictable that immediately after you post something is when you're going to get the most views, and then it slowly tapers off over time. So a strategy that we've seen a lot of our cross-listing users use is they come into the cross-listing tool, they archive their old listings, they duplicate the listings that they've already posted, and they're just relisting them every 2-3 days. So, there are a variety of strategies that we've seen people leverage successfully to try and get sales off of Facebook Marketplace. So those might be some strategies that if you're in a tough spot, you don't have the capital to redeploy and build an actual business and marketing strategy that you could pursue instead.
I'm so glad I asked you that question. I think that's going to be valuable for a lot of people that are in that situation. But yeah, I was really what's lit a fire in me, man, was I started this coaching program. 2 of the guys in the program had gotten their marketplace banned, and I was like, dude, these guys don't even have Facebook groups yet. So what do you do in that case? If your marketplace is banned, you don't have a Facebook group, you don't have a list, what do you do? So I think that really the answer is you really pretty much have to, if you have it, start pivoting onto ads and experimenting with those right away. But you need to be building a list more than anything else. And so we're going on to OfferUp now. That's definitely a good avenue, because I think a lot of people do overlook OfferUp. I know I did, when I put it out there and, just never really got anything. But in the midst of all that, my Facebook group was growing and everything was like, dude, we hardly list our items on Marketplace anymore. We typically, everything's going out on Marketplace still, because there needs to be something baiting people into the group. But man, the group is just the word of mouth on it is insane. We get rushes of requests all the time from different pockets, and I know where they're coming from now. A lot of times there's a spouses group, a military spouses group in the area. It's we go viral in that thing every other day, and we just get rushed. So eventually that does happen. That's the beautiful thing about building a community, is eventually you don't have to be so into the guerrilla marketing of it, hey, join my group, here's the link. You can step out of that eventually, and it's just going to grow itself. And that's where we are, but it takes time.
Yeah, you should be posting still on Marketplace. That's how the funnel did get started. But at a certain level of growth, that there are network effects that you can benefit from. And it sort of starts to generate an organic engine of growth for the group itself. Very interesting how that happens. If you got caught with your pants down and you don't know what to do because sales are down or your account got banned, I think the best you can try to do is pivot a little bit, diversify, try to get unbanned, create a new account. These are all possible things. But in reality, if you're in this situation, you're probably in a tough spot. Now, on the other hand, I think people who are a little bit more prepared, or let's say they have $10,000 in capital to deploy over a period of 2-3 months, can fight their way out of the situation. So I think that's really about the free liquidity someone is going to need. $10,000 in capital is about what someone needs to build a marketing funnel, sales and marketing funnel for themselves. And I think this assumes a couple things. So first is you have a brick and mortar. I think this is becoming increasingly important. If you want to get to higher levels of revenue, I'm talking $250,000 plus, you're not going to do it operating out of a storage unit. You need a brick and mortar, you need a lease, you need a warehouse. It should be a couple thousand square feet. And ideally, you even have some room where you can show off the items too. So it's not just a warehouse where you're storing things, but people can walk in, they can engage with you. You basically have a storefront. I think that's a necessary level to get to. And then you need a website. You need to have a Google My Business. You need to be branded. You need to present yourself not as some imaginary random person on Facebook Marketplace, but as an entity that is professional, has a good reputation. And if you have that as the foundation, now you can work on the ad strategy or the marketing strategy. And it's going to take time to figure out, right? You have a collective of 20, 25 people that you're working with right now to try and grow their sales and marketing. That's an incredible amount of at-bats. And I'm curious, what you've seen as a commonality in their situations and taking them from where they're at now to reportedly the next level.
To me, it's clear that handling leads, it's just the type of leads generated. It was something I saw in my last company. I saw that 10% of the clients that I had were the ones that did the best. There was a top 10%. And then the rest of everybody kind of got so-so results. And then I remember I was like, dude, why are these guys getting such better results than other people? And then I took a look into their operations, and it was always that the top 10% had their front desk dealing with the leads in the first 5 minutes. They hit the leads hard. They hit them more than once. What they did is they had their sales process down, and they were heavily sales oriented, whereas the other 90% of clients in that company would hit a lead once and then they'd be like, oh, it's a dead lead. And so I'm finding that it's a similar thing in this industry, is like there's a fair amount of, with the clients that I am servicing, coaching involved. Like, hey, I need you to be with the leads in the first 5 minutes. I need you to follow up. If they're not responding, hit them again tomorrow, hit them again the next day, because there are people in there that will buy. And there are some people that are seeing that now, which is great, but we got to get them over that hump. And then we got to like build morale in them in a sense, because it is a new way. It's just completely different than marketplace. It's not as intentional. There is more work involved, but there's a lot bigger of an opportunity for you to sell a whole lot more couches. And so especially if you have the ability to sell the same couch over and over and over again, because then it's like, you can run an ad for your used stuff. That's great. You can throw that up. But then once you sell out, you need to replenish the creative in there, which Facebook has to go into relearning. So right now, I think if you're going to go ads, you need to be growing a Facebook group with it, or you need to build a strategy that is just going to get them into the messenger where you then can show your current inventory. So the creative isn't based around your current inventory. It needs to be based around something else. And then you get your current inventory to them and then just push them down a funnel. And then it's going to be really, really gravy for the guys who have more than one of the same couch that they can sell over and over and over again. Because then it's just like a productized ad. You just slap it up and then they're selling. But the sales systems, bro, it's such an important piece of it. So I think if I'm looking at the industry, I'm thinking that these are the two things that people need to become proficient in quick, is handling leads and their ability to generate leads from other sources.
So following up with leads requires a certain amount of tenacity. And to me, it's very hard to teach, right? Like I used to do cold calling to generate leads for my agency. That fucking sucked. And so when we started investing money into Google Ads and we're getting inbound leads, you better believe that I was milking all the juice in that lead I could possibly get. That lead was getting called 10, 15 times until they picked up, or I could like get some not a good number, or, this guy's like a fuckhead, or, whatever. That's because I built that business from scratch and I knew how much work I had to put in to get one outbound lead. And so once we were spending money, I really, really treasured the money and the results that we're getting out of the inbound. I find that hard to teach. How are you thinking about this? Like, do you think like your guys that don't have that innate killer instinct, let's say, are going to be able to convert, or do we need to design a system that accounts for that?
I agree that it is hard to teach. 100%. It's hard to teach. All I can do is bring them to the water, man. Like, I'm going to give them all the tools, resources, and knowledge that I have to equip them to be successful with it. And then it's really up to them, because there is a level of work that has to be done on their end. That said, this is the Facebook ad side of things. And we have other marketing strategies that we're developing right now that may change the level of load that they have to take to get deals closed. But regardless, just switching from a platform that's designed to help people find what they're looking for, and then you already being on the other end, that just intentional lead. You're switching away from that, not something that is necessarily going to be less successful, because I look at it as when they take control of the amount of leads that they can get and that they can close, they have the opportunity to be much more successful, because it's scalable, right? We put more, like once we understand that, hey, like this is what it costs, like we just spend more money and then we'll make more money. But there's a level of confidence that has to come with that. And so you have to start working on it now. But yeah, I agree, man. The best thing that I can do is just bring them to the water and equip them with everything that I know to equip them with, but they have to be ready to do the work.
I think the other thing is you're not coming to these flippers and saying like, hey, I have a foolproof system that's going to scale your business 5 to 10x. What you're saying is like, hey, there's a problem. All of the couch flippers in this community, we're up against this problem right now. And I want to work with you to start figuring out what the answer to that problem is. And so if they have the expectation that they're going to come in and they're going to start getting results right away, that's not what you're saying, first of all, and probably not a fair expectation, right? And so they collectively, you with your consulting clients, independent business owners, the work that we're doing at Ivy is actually taking a crack at this right now, where we're working with certain flippers to try and help them hone in sales and marketing system. And like, we want to figure out the model too, right? We're going to have to push through this. So yeah, you might have to call 100 shitty leads. Get over it. I'm sorry, but it's just, yeah, it's a little frustrating sometimes. Like sometimes you got to go through the shit to get to the gold, and you have to call those 100 leads to figure out what's going right and what's going wrong in order to develop a system that's going to be more sustainable. And I understand that frustration. Like, don't get me wrong. Like we have a free trial funnel at Ivy. People sign up for the product. We make little adjustments over time, but I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time this year just calling leads that had signed up for free trials of our product. And we get like 10, 15 of those a day. And, it's not a great high leverage use of my time to be calling these leads, but I was like, I need to go figure out what's happening here. I'm not going to be spending my time doing this forever as a CEO of this company, but in order to figure out what's working and what's not working, if I have to go make 100, a couple 100,000 calls over the course of the month to start getting that diagnosis, that's what I'm going to do. And then, where we're at now is that the funnel is almost completely automated, but it would not have been possible if I didn't take that time initially to go sift through all the leads and figure out like, where are these people at? Who's even signing up for the product? A lot of the information that we are getting from the free trial is just junk info. You have to at least get to the source to understand, and in order to do something different, in order to do something better.
Hey, the best thing we can do, man, is just prep the industry for these changes. They're going to happen, and maybe Facebook Marketplace solves itself and there are no more issues, or maybe there's another platform that comes out that's as equally as powerful. That's all great, but now we know what can happen, so people know how to prepare themselves.
So a couple more questions just in terms of the preliminary testing and results that you've gotten. One thing that you said earlier is compared to listing something on Marketplace, you're not marketing an individual item anymore when you're doing the advertising. And you could, right? Like you could set up a product feed and then dynamically show those products to people as they're browsing Facebook and Instagram. So you're kind of advertising at a product level, but you're choosing to do something different. So tell me a little bit more about that, what that looks like. What is the call to action? Like, I just want to understand like what you've been trying and, some of the, how that's been panning out other than, what we've already talked about.
The overall strategy right now is we'll run a carousel ad of your current inventory. You can do that as a used flipper, but then you'll have to go in and change that. And then for the new stuff, we've just been running their new inventory as a catalog ad and a carousel ad. And then we've been really pinpointing who in their market are the ones responding to the ad so that we can then get more effective ad costs down the road. Also playing with audiences. So there's a number of different features that are really cool inside of Facebook. So you can retarget people who landed on your page. You can retarget people who landed on your Instagram, who watched a certain amount of a specific video. You can retarget people who interacted with you can target people specifically who have interacted with your Facebook Marketplace in the last 180 days. So I've populated a couple of those audiences. We haven't launched to any of those audiences yet. My suspicion is that those will be some great audiences because those are people who showed intent in the last 180 days. And at the very least, they say that people need to see your brand 7 times before they purchase from you. And that's another thing. My point was that just being able to retarget people, you'll find a lot of really cheap buyers through a retargeting campaign for that reason. Because that is always being built. Your percentage of potential buyers is always being built no matter what it is that you're doing. But a lot of people who have been building potential buyers over the last few months who haven't even been running ads, the ads are showing up in front of these potential buyers and now they're raising their hand again and then stepping forward and buying couches, and they seem to be the high intent ones. So you've got like awareness and you've got like consideration, and you've got people taking action on your business. There's a lot of people in the top end of the funnel that will find their way to the bottom end of the funnel before you know it. But if you're not showing up in front of them, you're not top of mind, they will not buy. But you have to have a way of just showing up in front of those people. That's really what we're doing, man, because brand awareness is going to be a big part of it too. So there's a lot of layers to the funnel. We're still at a ground level of what will happen in the next 6 months. So
got it. So it sounds like, okay, carousel ad, marketing specific products. If it's used, those products get swapped out. If it's new, great. You can rinse and repeat. Call to action is messenger conversation.
Or you can run a lead form as well if you have the system for that. So there's some of you guys will have like text messaging systems where you can do automatic text messages. I would highly suggest you do that and then run a lead form. I think that there's also a great opportunity to scale big campaigns doing that. But copy strategy. So I run my copy. I've been experimenting with other copy strategies, but I have one tried and true one that has just always worked for me, no matter the industry. And it's calling out the audience. So, hey, Columbus, Georgia, who you are and what you're doing. Hey, I'm Dylan over at Dylan's Couch Drops, and I'm doing something super awesome to just promote my business in the local area, create scarcity and urgency. So I'm giving away 10 vouchers for 50% off of a couch in the near future, and then call to action. So you've got 4 very important lines that need to be in your ad copy. That is the flow that I've always found that I'm able to get people to take action from. That's my framework. That part can be changed. That scarcity, urgency, it needs to be built in there, but that's really kind of the offer, and that can change. I think people should be experimenting with a lot of different things over this time, because the whole goal is just to get them in front of us. As couch flippers, we have a lot of flexibility in what we say that we charge, because we're not a retail store and we're not selling something for $4,000. A lot of times we are selling something for $2,000 that could be sold for $4,000 or is sold for $4,000. So there's some flexibility there for us to really play with that number. But the whole strategy with my gym company that I sold, that was servicing leads, and with any industry ever with an ad campaign, it's just about getting them in front of us. Like, what can we do to get them in front of us? So that's the same approach that I'm taking to these ads. With the Facebook ads for the gyms, we would run a free month. Very rarely when somebody came into the gym did they actually take advantage of the free month. They would go on a tour of the gym. Whoever was giving the tour would get to know their what and their why, and then they would sell them a gym membership as well as like personal training packages and things like that. So it was just about getting them in front of them so that they could see the value and then close the deal. Same thing for the couches. They will see the value in the couches once we can get them in front of them. So I would say that everything that you do in the ad should funnel them into some kind of an appointment, because this is cold traffic. This isn't like a hot Facebook group where everybody knows, loves, and trusts you already. This is cold traffic that they don't know you from Adam, and they have a want, and you just need to funnel them every step of the way into buying from you. And so I think that everything should be pointed at getting them in the doors to come sit on this couch that you're selling. So that's kind of what we're pushing for right a second.
Based on the kinds of leads that you're generating, it's much less likely that these people are going to buy the couch sight unseen, like they may have if they were searching for it on Facebook Marketplace. But it's an opportunity to get them into your warehouse or your showroom, hopefully. And so once again, kind of going back to the idea of like, what is the foundation that you need to start pursuing a strategy like this? You probably have to have scaled up a little bit. You can try to get people to show up to your storage unit and showing in your storage unit, but it just doesn't have the same feel. That gravitas doesn't feel as professional. Whereas if you have that, if you've made that jump up, you have a nice little spot where you can show off your couches. This is a great way to get people into the door.
Yeah, man. For me personally, I don't like it when people get caught up in the whole having to look professional thing. I would agree with you in the sense that if you do have a bigger warehouse, you'll look more professional and stuff like that. But I think that if you just get them in front of you, if you're doing it out of your garage, you'll be fine. Just get them in front of you and be like, get to know you. Like, that's where they get to know you. You know, when you got somebody in front of you, the conversion rate jumps up very, very heavily. And, it's a big reason why car salesmen are fighting over the people that show up on the lot. You get someone to just show up. That shows a lot of intention. Just fighting tooth and nail, whatever strategy you're using to get them in front of you until you can until we build a strategy where these people are warm and they're just ready to buy offline, like in the Facebook group strategy.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Dylan, thank you so much for coming on the pod again, sharing your nuggets of wisdom. I think today's conversation is really important. I think it's time that we started to sound the whistle about the issues that the community is facing. It's good to know that you're out here actively looking for a solution, and I look forward to jumping back on with you in another, I don't know, maybe 6 months, maybe sooner, to learn more about, you've executed for your clients and the success that they've seen. And once again, if we can elucidate a model here, I know that's immensely valuable for the people that watch this pod, people in the community. We're all out here trying to work hard, build legitimate businesses, provide for ourselves, our families, and anything we can do to help people along their journey is really appreciated.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me on. We'll see you again soon.